Ethan Voss slammed the thrusters, but the scout ship's hull groaned under the storm of alien winds. Sparks rained from the damaged engine, each one a reminder that staying in the air another second could be his last. The planet below was a jagged maze of obsidian cliffs and mist-shrouded valleys. He had no choice, he had to crash land and fast. The ground struck with a violent shudder. Metal screeched as the ship skidded across black rock, spraying shards like deadly rain. Ethan hit the console, grimacing, feeling the tremor through his arms. Smoke curled from the engines, thick and acrid. Then he heard it, a high-pitched cry that made his teeth ache. It was tiny, frightened, and utterly unlike anything he had ever heard. He forced the hatch open, coughing as ash and smoke choked the cabin. The mist outside swirled with strange green light, making the jagged rocks ahead look like teeth ready to bite. And then he saw it, a small creature no bigger than a Terran fox, trapped beneath a fallen panel of his ship. Its scales shimmered silver, reflecting the strange light, and its eyes glowed a deep violet. Every time it struggled, the panel pinched harder, and its cry cut deeper into Ethan's chest. "Hold on. I've got you," he said, dropping to his knees. His hands shook as he pried the metal loose, but the moment he lifted it, the hatchling scrabbled toward him, trembling. Instead of darting away, it curled into his chest, pressing its tiny body against his. Ethan's pulse spiked. It was trusting him completely. And yet, in the same instant, he sensed the danger that had driven him to this planet. The patrols wouldn't just leave him alone. Then they appeared. Alien silhouettes emerged from the mist, moving on spindly legs with an eerie, jerking rhythm. Ethan froze for a heartbeat. They weren't attacking him, they recoiled in horror at the hatchling. Strange, high-pitched clicks echoed from their mandibles, and one of the creatures pointed a slender arm at the hatchling, shaking as if it had seen a specter. They whispered in a language he couldn't understand, words sharp and urgent. But the fear in their posture was unmistakable. The hatchling's eyes locked onto Ethan's. It shivered, but it didn't run. Somehow, it seemed to know he was the only one who could protect it. And for a brief second, amid the chaos, he felt a surge of warmth in his chest. Not relief, not safety, but purpose. He was the human in the middle of an alien storm, and this fragile creature depended on him entirely. "Come on," Ethan muttered. He grabbed the hatchling with one arm, clinging to it as if the tiny life in his hands outweighed his own. Sparks flew again as a nearby rock column collapsed from the tremor of a distant quake. Dust and shards filled the air, blinding him for a second. He coughed, stumbling over jagged rocks, heart hammering. Every step felt like a gamble. If he fell, if the aliens came closer, there was no plan B. The hatchling wriggled, making a soft, almost musical sound. Ethan realized it wasn't just fear, it was communicating. It wanted him to move, to keep going. He nodded, adjusting his grip and sprinting toward the shadowed ridge where the mist thinned. A sharp, electric hum pierced the air. One of the aliens had raised a strange device, and a pulse of energy shot toward them. Ethan dove behind a jagged boulder, the hatchling still pressed to his chest. A small crack appeared in the rock. Dust and energy sparks rained down. The aliens recoiled again, their fear clear, almost comical for a second if the danger weren't so real. Ethan realized something. Whatever this hatchling was, the aliens feared it more than him. And that fear could be his advantage. If he moved fast, stayed clever, stayed alive. He glanced down at the hatchling. Its violet eyes blinked, meeting his with a mix of trust and impatience, as if to say, "We can't stop now." He scrambled over a jagged ridge and nearly slipped into a fog-filled crevasse. His boots skidded, claws of rock cutting through the soles, but he managed to hold on. The hatchling let out a sharp chirp, almost scolding, and snuggled closer. Ethan laughed, short and breathless. That small moment, warm, human, tender, was like a spark of light in the storm of chaos. He felt a pulse of courage. He wasn't just running from danger. He was running toward something. Safety, purpose, and perhaps something much bigger he didn't yet understand. A sudden shadow cut across the mist. Ethan froze. The patrol had regrouped, moving faster, closing in. One alien emitted a piercing shriek that echoed through the canyon walls. The hatchling stiffened, scales bristling. Ethan's heart lurched. He had no weapons left, only his wits, his legs, and the fragile trust of the creature in his arms. Then the hatchling did something unexpected. A pulse of violet light flashed from its chest, striking the nearest alien. The figure screamed, stumbled, and toppled backward into the mist. Ethan's jaw dropped. The hatchling had powers the aliens feared. He swallowed hard, realizing this wasn't just survival anymore. He was holding a being that could change everything. He stared at the rising mist, at the silhouettes approaching, and whispered, "Hold on. I won't let them take you." The hatchling chirped softly, curling tighter. Ethan knew one thing: the next step would be deadly. But there was no turning back now. And then a new shape emerged from the mist, a massive, shadowed form unlike anything Ethan had seen. Its glowing eyes locked on the hatchling, and a shiver ran down his spine. The hunt was far from over. Ethan's lungs burned as he scrambled over the jagged ridge, the hatchling pressed tightly to his chest. Its violet eyes glimmered, watching the mist as if sensing every movement of the approaching aliens. Behind him, the echoes of their shrieks bounced off the canyon walls, growing louder. Each step felt like running through molten glass. One wrong move and he would fall, or worse, the aliens would catch them both. He ducked behind a fractured boulder as the massive shadow from the mist moved closer. The silhouette was enormous, far larger than the patrols. Ethan's stomach dropped. Its glowing eyes flickered across the fog, scanning. The hatchling twitched in his arms, emitting a soft, musical chirp. It was a warning, a signal, a call to action. He didn't fully understand it yet, but instinct told him. He had to move, and fast. "I've got you," Ethan whispered, adjusting his grip. He tore his gaze from the shadow and scanned the terrain ahead. The canyon split into two paths, a narrow ledge hugging the cliffside or a descent into a swirling fog below. The ledge was treacherous. One slip and it would be fatal, but the fog offered cover. He chose the fog, trusting the hatchling's sense over his own fear. As he dropped into the mist, the hatchling's scales shimmered against the dim green light filtering through the clouds. Each step was uncertain, the wet rocks slick and unforgiving. Ethan stumbled, catching himself just before tumbling into the dark crevasse. The hatchling chirped sharply, pressing its tiny body into his chest. He realized it wasn't just scared, it was guiding him, reacting to dangers he couldn't see yet. Suddenly, a hum filled the air, sharp and electric. Ethan froze. From the fog, a drone-like alien device emerged, hovering silently with glowing tendrils that probed the air. It scanned for heat and movement. Ethan's heart raced. He had no weapon, no shield, only quick thinking and the fragile creature in his arms. He ducked low, pressing against a rock, and remembered the ship's emergency flare kit in his pocket. With careful aim, he ignited a flare and tossed it toward the opposite side. Sparks flew, smoke billowed, and the drone's sensors twitched. It veered toward the distraction, giving Ethan precious seconds. He darted forward, slipping through the fog like a shadow, adrenaline pounding. The hatchling chirped again, softer this time, almost approvingly. Ethan allowed a brief smile, though the fear clung to him like ice. He realized these little moments, trust, tiny victories, were the only anchors keeping him sane in the chaos. Then came the real danger. A narrow bridge of rock, slick with alien dew, spanned a deep chasm ahead. It wobbled as if alive, threatening to collapse. Ethan's pulse raced. One step wrong and he and the hatchling would plunge into darkness. The hatchling wriggled in his arms, vibrating softly. Its glow intensified, casting a faint light on the bridge. It wasn't just illumination, it was reassurance. Step by step, he inched across, sweat stinging his eyes, every nerve screaming. Midway, the rock trembled violently, a low rumble echoing from below. Ethan froze, gripping the hatchling tighter. Dust fell around him, and for a terrifying second, he thought the bridge would give way. Then the hatchling emitted a pulse of violet energy. The trembling slowed, the rock stabilizing under an invisible force. Ethan's jaw dropped. The hatchling had powers, and they were real. He exhaled sharply, not daring to relax. The patrols had grown smarter, adapting to his previous tricks. From the mist, multiple glowing eyes appeared. Ethan cursed under his breath. They were flanking him. He scanned quickly, spotting a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. Too small for the aliens, but just wide enough for him. "Hang on," he whispered. He leaped toward the crevice, landing roughly, scraping his palms and knees. The hatchling squeaked but clung tightly. Behind them, the aliens skidded to the edge of the cliff, but the crevice was impossible to enter. Ethan pressed against the damp wall, breathing hard, adrenaline still thrumming. He allowed himself a tiny moment of triumph. They had escaped for now. The hatchling chirped, curling into his chest. Its tiny warmth was comforting, and for a second the world seemed almost quiet. Almost. Then a new sound pierced the fog, low, resonant, and vibrating through the stone. Ethan froze. It was coming from the cliffs above, a predator of some kind unlike anything he had seen. Its massive form emerged, scales glinting in the mist, teeth bared. The aliens hesitated, fear flickering across their movements. But this creature didn't hesitate. It was coming straight for them, and there was no easy path to safety. Ethan's mind raced. He had the hatchling, he had instinct, and now he had an impossible choice. Fight, flee, or find some impossible clever way to survive. He tightened his grip on the hatchling. Its tiny claws dug into his shirt, and its violet glow pulsed rapidly. It was ready. And so was he. One wrong move, and the next instant could be his last. But giving up was never an option. Ethan swallowed hard, looking up at the approaching shadow and then at the hatchling. They would face it together. And then the hatchling chirped sharply, louder this time, a signal Ethan didn't understand, but the mist around them shifted violently, almost alive. Something ancient, something powerful stirred just ahead, and Ethan realized, the danger wasn't just the aliens. There was something far greater waiting in the fog, something that could change everything. The ground trembled beneath his boots as he stepped forward, holding the hatchling close. His next move would decide not just survival, but the fate of the creature who trusted him completely. Ethan's boots sank slightly into the alien dew as he pressed forward, the hatchling snug against his chest. The mist swirled thicker now, almost alive, twisting around jagged rocks and cliffs like it had a mind of its own. Every heartbeat thumped in his ears. He knew they were being watched, not just by the alien patrols but by something bigger, older, more dangerous. The hatchling's scales shimmered faintly, a soft violet glow pulsing with each tremor beneath them. Ahead, a faint structure emerged from the fog, a tall, crystalline spire partially buried in stone. Its surface reflected the hatchling's glow in shards of green and silver light. Ethan's pulse quickened. He didn't know what it was, but instinct told him this was what the hatchling had been leading him to. Every step closer, the air seemed to hum with energy, a low resonance that made his teeth vibrate. The aliens would never understand this. They feared it, but he sensed it held answers. He approached cautiously, scanning the edges of the spire for traps or patrols. Nothing moved. Too quiet. The hatchling chirped softly, nudging his chest with its tiny snout. Ethan knelt, letting it sniff the base of the spire. It pressed against the surface, and suddenly, a faint holographic projection flickered to life. Lines of alien script shimmered in the air, forming images that shifted like liquid metal. Ethan froze, heart pounding. The hatchling chirped urgently, circling in front of him. Then a flash, he understood the sequence. The hatchling was activating the spire. His eyes widened as a wave of light unfolded before him. Holograms of alien worlds, star systems, and strange energy flows shimmered across the mist. At the center, he saw a pulse identical to the hatchling's glow, a network of energy connecting life forms across distances, like a bridge between planets. The realization hit him hard. This tiny creature was not just feared, it was essential. Vital. The alien's terror was a survival instinct. They had hunted its kind because it could change everything. Before he could react further, movement flickered in the shadows. The alien patrol had arrived. But instead of attacking, they hesitated at the sight of the spire, their appendages trembling. High-pitched clicks filled the air. Ethan saw something shocking. The patrol was communicating with the spire, almost like pleading. They weren't just afraid, they were desperate. The hatchling chirped again, emitting a pulse that made the patrol flinch backward. Ethan realized the truth. This creature was the key to something the aliens had tried and failed to control for centuries. He swallowed hard, glancing down at the hatchling. Its trust in him had just become a responsibility heavier than he could have imagined. Protecting it wasn't enough, he had to understand it, to guide it. One wrong step and both of them could be annihilated. But the hatchling didn't hesitate. Its violet glow brightened, almost beckoning him toward a spiral staircase carved into the spire's interior. The air pulsed with energy as if the building itself was alive, watching, testing him. Ethan stepped forward, gripping the hatchling close. The spire's interior was narrow, walls lined with crystalline ridges that hummed when touched. He carefully ascended, noticing faint, claw-like marks along the floor, signs that previous visitors had struggled or failed. The hatchling chirped again, and he realized it was guiding him around hazards he couldn't yet see. Its instincts were flawless. His human ingenuity was the only thing keeping them alive as a team. At the top of the spiral, the air shifted. A circular chamber opened before them, massive and glowing with pulsing energy. In the center floated a platform of pure light, and above it, a hovering hologram displayed what appeared to be a map of alien civilizations intertwined with glowing nodes, some stable, some dormant. And at the largest node, the hatchling's glow matched perfectly. It was a bridge, a network waiting to be awakened. Ethan's mind reeled. The hatchling wasn't just a creature, they were standing at the heart of an ancient system, and this system could unite or destroy entire worlds. Suddenly, alarms blared, not mechanical but a vibration through the walls that shook the spire. Ethan spun around. The aliens had realized what he had found. They surged toward the staircase in panic, fear etched on every limb. Ethan's eyes darted around. There was no way down, they'd be trapped if they didn't act fast. He felt the hatchling stir in his arms, energy radiating through him. Its chirps weren't fear, they were instructions, a rhythm, a sequence. He caught on quickly. This was a signal, a method to manipulate the spire itself. With a deep breath, Ethan pressed the hatchling against the glowing platform. A pulse shot outward, light cascading over the chamber, over the spire, even into the mist outside. The alien patrols froze, their fear intensifying as though the network itself was judging them. The hatchling's violet glow flared bright enough to illuminate every corner of the chamber, and Ethan felt a surge of power, not his own but shared with him through trust. The micro-cliffhanger hit. From the fog outside, a sound unlike any alien shriek vibrated through the spire. The ground trembled violently. Something enormous, older than the aliens, older than the spire itself, was moving toward them, drawn by the hatchling's pulse. Ethan tightened his grip, heart hammering. This was no longer just about evading patrols. This was about surviving something ancient, something far beyond comprehension. He glanced at the hatchling, whose small body shivered, yet it didn't pull away. Ethan understood in that instant. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And the next step would demand every ounce of courage, cunning, and resilience he had. Ethan's breath came in ragged gasps as the spire trembled beneath his boots. The hatchling, pressed tightly to his chest, pulsed with violet light, each beat a warning and a guide. Outside, through the crystalline walls, he glimpsed the impossible. A colossal shadow moving through the mist, massive claws raking the cliffs, eyes glowing like molten stars. It was older than anything Ethan had ever seen, an entity that made the alien patrol's fear look trivial. And it was heading straight for them. The spire hummed in resonance with the hatchling's energy, almost alive, responding to their combined presence. Ethan realized they weren't just hiding, they were part of something bigger. A bridge between him, the hatchling, and the spire's ancient power. He had to act. Hesitation would be death. "Stay close," he whispered. His voice trembled but carried determination. The hatchling chirped, soft and rhythmic, almost encouraging. Ethan scanned the chamber. Crystalline conduits led from the central platform to the outer walls, pulsing in sync with the hatchling. He noticed faint glyphs etched along the conduits, an instruction, a sequence to activate. He didn't fully understand it, but he knew one thing: the energy could repel the ancient predator if he timed it right. He adjusted the hatchling in his arms and stepped onto the nearest conduit. Light flared, tingling along his palms and arms, but the hatchling remained calm, glowing brighter. Ethan followed the rhythm of its pulses, pressing the creature against the next node, watching as the spire's energy expanded. The walls shivered and sang, and a barrier of pure light surged outward, shimmering across the misty cliffs. Outside, the colossal shadow roared. The air shook, stones dislodged from cliffs, and a low, resonant hum filled the chamber. Ethan stumbled but held firm. The hatchling chirped sharply, sending a pulse that rippled through the energy barrier. The creature froze mid-step as if repelled by an invisible wall. Ethan's heart surged. This small creature, this fragile being, was holding off a godlike predator. But victory was not guaranteed. The alien patrol, emboldened by curiosity, surged back toward the spire, moving through cracks in the mist. Ethan knew if they breached the chamber, the hatchling could be captured, or worse. He glanced at the conduit sequence again, realizing a bold choice was needed. He had to extend the energy outward, beyond the spire, into the canyon itself, or the predator would overwhelm the structure. "Hold on," he muttered, pressing the hatchling firmly to the central node. Its tiny claws dug into his chest as violet light flared. Ethan felt the energy pulse through him, not painfully but with raw force, synchronized with the hatchling's heartbeat. The spire shuddered, crystals glinting, walls vibrating with power. Outside, the predator screamed, a sound so deep it resonated in Ethan's bones. But the energy barrier held. The aliens recoiled again, fear overtaking their curiosity. The hatchling's glow intensified, stabilizing the barrier. Ethan realized they had a chance. But he also realized the cost. He couldn't leave the spire now. If he went outside, he would be exposed to both the predator and the alien patrols. Every second counted, and each choice had deadly consequences. From the mist, the predator lashed out, striking the cliffs near the spire with enough force to shatter stone. Dust and debris rained down. Ethan ducked instinctively, clutching the hatchling tighter. Its small body vibrated, scales flaring with an intensity that lit the chamber. The pulse it sent was stronger now, expanding the light into a protective dome around them. The predator screeched and recoiled, but it wasn't gone. It was testing them, probing for weakness. Ethan's mind raced. There was only one way to survive. He had to draw the predator closer, guiding it into the energy field, and then amplify the hatchling's pulse through the entire spire network. He took a deep breath, counting the rhythm of its glow. "We can do this. Together." The hatchling chirped sharply, almost impatiently, as if agreeing. Step by step, he moved toward the spire's edge, careful to avoid collapsing conduits. Outside, the predator lunged, claws scraping against the crystalline walls. Ethan steadied himself, pressing the hatchling against the central node one last time. A surge of violet light shot outward, connecting every conduit, every crystal. The energy flared across the mist, blindingly bright, resonating with the predator's massive body. It screeched, thrashing, and then froze, held at bay by a barrier stronger than its strength. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Ethan gasped, sweat and dust coating his skin. The hatchling nestled into his chest, exhausted but alive. They had survived. The predator retreated into the mist, unable to breach the energy field, and the alien patrol skittered backward, fear etched into every motion. Ethan sank to the floor, cradling the hatchling, heart pounding with relief and awe. But the danger wasn't over. The spire trembled again, but this time from within. Crystals along the walls pulsed independently, and a deep, resonant voice echoed, not words, but a vibration that shook the air and bone. Ethan's eyes widened. The spire wasn't just a structure. It was alive, aware, and it was reacting to the hatchling. Something ancient, something beyond comprehension was waking. The hatchling chirped softly, glowing faintly, nudging Ethan toward the center of the chamber. His trust was absolute. Ethan realized, with a mixture of fear and awe, that the creature's role wasn't finished. It wasn't just defending itself. They had activated something far bigger, a power that could change not only this planet but the entire network the spire represented. Ethan gritted his teeth, staring at the rising pulse of energy. "We're ready," he whispered. The hatchling chirped in agreement, curling against him. Together, human and creature, they faced the unknown, standing between survival and catastrophe. And then, through the mist outside, another shadow shifted, larger than the first, slower, deliberate. Ethan froze, pulse hammering. The spire hummed louder. The hatchling stiffened. Whatever was coming, it was watching, waiting, and this time it wasn't just testing them. It was deciding if they were worthy. Ethan's knees ached as he sank onto the crystalline floor, cradling the hatchling close. The pulse of violet light from its scales dimmed, softer now but steady, a heartbeat against his chest. The spire hummed beneath them, calm for the first time since they arrived, as if acknowledging their victory. Outside, the mist rolled quietly, and the massive shadows of the predators had retreated into the unknown. For now, the immediate danger was over. He exhaled, feeling the tension leave his body, but he didn't relax completely. Every instinct told him they weren't entirely safe. The hatchling chirped softly, brushing its tiny snout against his neck. Its trust was absolute, a fragile bond forged in fire and danger. Ethan smiled, tired but resolute. They had survived together. They had faced the impossible, and the hatchling had never left his side. The alien patrols, cautious and trembling, lingered at the edge of the spire. High-pitched clicks echoed, a mixture of fear and awe. Ethan realized they weren't enemies anymore. They were witnesses. The hatchling's pulse, amplified through the spire, had shown them something they had never seen. A creature capable of bridging life and energy, fear and wonder intertwined. The alien's terror hadn't been blind, it had been reverence, a warning. Now, with Ethan's courage and the hatchling's trust, the scales had tipped in favor of understanding. He carefully stood, scanning the chamber. The spire's crystals reflected the hatchling's glow, casting a soft, almost ethereal light across the walls. Ethan had thought he was protecting the creature, but he realized something profound. It had protected him too. Its instincts had guided them through impossible terrain, alerted him to threats he couldn't see, and now, its energy had held off forces that could have destroyed them both. They had survived because of each other. Ethan placed the hatchling gently on a raised platform, letting it move freely. It chirped, hopping lightly before curling back into his arms. His trust was unwavering. He stroked its silver scales, feeling the pulse of life beneath his fingers. "You're incredible," he whispered. "We made it. We really made it." The hatchling chirped again, a small musical sound that felt like agreement, and nestled deeper into his chest, refusing to sleep anywhere else. A soft vibration ran through the chamber. Ethan froze, listening. The spire itself seemed alive now, responding to the hatchling's presence. Holographic lights flickered across the walls, showing star systems, energy flows, and ancient pathways he didn't fully understand. The network the hatchling had awakened was vast. Older than the aliens, older than the predators, older than any life he had encountered. He realized the bond between them wasn't just emotional, it was fundamental. The hatchling had chosen him, and in doing so, had given him access to a power that could shape worlds. Outside, the mist began to shift. The patrols retreated slowly, leaving the spire alone. Ethan watched them go, a strange mixture of relief and concern settling over him. They weren't hostile anymore, but they weren't allies yet either. The hatchling chirped softly, sensing his unease. He hugged it closer. "It's okay," he murmured. "We'll figure this out. Together." Minutes passed and the mist cleared slightly, revealing the jagged cliffs and deep valleys below. Ethan realized the landscape, dangerous as it was, no longer felt like a prison. They had survived forces that should have crushed them, and they had done it together. His courage, his choices, and the hatchling's trust had turned fear into opportunity. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy that didn't expect humans to endure. A small, unexpected moment broke the tension. The hatchling stretched, then looked up at him with glowing eyes that seemed almost intelligent beyond measure. It chirped, a playful, musical note, and nudged him toward the spire's exit. Ethan laughed softly, the sound echoing in the crystalline chamber. The first real smile he had allowed himself in days. They had survived the impossible, but the adventure was far from over. Ethan stepped toward the exit, the hatchling pressed against his chest. As they emerged into the open air, the spire pulsed one final time, sending a ripple across the surrounding cliffs. In the distance, faint lights flickered beneath the mist. Other structures, other nodes connected to the network they had just awakened. He felt a thrill of both awe and unease. The galaxy was far larger and far stranger than he had imagined. And this tiny creature, fragile yet powerful, had just become the key to understanding it. He looked down at the hatchling. It chirped softly, curling tighter into his arms. Ethan felt a swell of emotion, responsibility, protectiveness, and wonder all at once. The creature that depended on him now also depended on the choices he would make next. He had survived, yes, but he had also inherited a responsibility far beyond a single life, far beyond this planet. And then the wind shifted. From the mist, a faint vibration, subtle but unmistakable, rippled through the cliffs. Ethan stiffened. The pulse wasn't hostile, it was deliberate. Something was watching, responding to the network, waiting for the hatchling's signal. He tightened his grip on the creature, heart racing again. The galaxy had noticed them, and he understood instinctively that this was only the beginning. The hatchling chirped one last time, pressing its head against his chest. Ethan whispered softly, "We'll be ready. Together." The glow in its eyes pulsed gently, a heartbeat that matched his own. They had survived predators, patrols, and impossible odds. They had forged a bond stronger than fear itself. And somewhere out there, across the network, the galaxy was already waiting for the next move. Ethan took a step forward, the hatchling secure in his arms, the spire behind them pulsing faintly with ancient energy. The adventure wasn't over, it was only beginning. And with the trust of the tiny creature in his hands, he felt a courage deeper than anything he had known, ready to face whatever came next.